Hey, it's Soul, and welcome to another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the richest supply of copium-filled content. Hit the like button, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and let's start off with some urgency. Patch 10.1 is coming out soon. With a release candidate out in the wild, there was already kind of a pseudo-official announcement of Season 1 ending, and we knew this for like weeks now. It's not as exciting as it used to be, huh? This Monday, though, I'm going to release a video with reminders on what last-minute things you can consider doing before the patch and the season starts. There's only one more week to get your AOTC, your CE, your KSM, BLT, NBA, LGBTQ, BBQ, BYOB, WTF, GG. Word. And the WoW marketing team is winding up the hype with blog releases, reminders of upcoming features, and more. One blog reiterated what was coming with cross-faction guilds. It's a move that's bound to reshape the landscape of World of Warcraft's players forever, or is it? Some are questioning the effectiveness of it after reading through the recent dev blog that goes over the feature, and I'm going to read the major bullet points. Guild affiliation with the Alliance or Horde will depend on the faction of the guild leader, and guild achievements and vendors will still reflect the guild's primary faction. Guild members of the opposite faction will benefit from unlocked shared perks but cannot contribute to specific achievements. As an example, Alliance members of a Horde guild could not contribute progress towards the Alliance Slayer guild achievement. Guild repairs and social conveniences like shared chat will be available to opposite faction guild members. Players must be Battle.net friends or part of the same Battle.net community to invite or receive an invitation to an opposite faction guild on the same realm. Notably, cross-faction queuing for instances like Heroics, Time Walking, or Raid Finder will not work. Manual grouping via the pre-made group tool, it does work as long as the person making the group allows for cross-faction invites. And cross-faction outdoor content, it's still not a thing. Folks don't like some of these bullet points, and rightfully so. They want to play with their friends with as few barriers as possible. They just want the game to work. There are disagreements on the merits of cross-faction period, but one thing that we can all agree on is that the work in lifting the faction divide, it's not something that can be simply knocked down with one kick. This is one of those problems where the solutions could be broken down into stages that the WoW team can implement as soon as it's ready, but the end result is going to take months or even years to complete. Stage 1 was cross-faction grouping for instances. That came in patch 9.2.5, and that was almost a year ago. Stage 2, cross-faction guilds, that's coming in just a few weeks. Outdoor content, sure, that's gonna come later again, but cross-faction queuing, one could argue that this could come much sooner than later, and it's obvious that the WoW team is holding on to that until they feel like players are ready, because they're probably not ready. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, dude, I've been ready since 2004, what's the holdup? In a little bit, I'm going to talk about why some Night Elf players are mad, like really mad that their race of choice is being allegedly mistreated by the WoW team. Never mind how we feel about that, but let's just accept that they're really angry. So how would it feel if a Night Elf player were to queue up for like anything random, and they were, against their consent, teamed up with like one of those filthy orcs who were complicit with burning down Teldrassil, those filthy murdering bastards? I'm just trying to get in character here. They're all evil! 20 years ago, a bunch of devs made a game with two rival factions that weren't just rivals, they were killing each other in lore and in PvP. It's just a video game, right? But sports ball teams would literally riot in the streets if they lost to their rivals. This game has created tensions that run deep, and I bet that a scientist person could do a case study on racism just based on this game. Choice is important. Mercenary mode in PvP, it's a player choice. Allowing cross-faction grouping is a player choice. Joining a cross-faction guild is a player choice, but queuing randomly, you don't know what you're gonna get. Having a filter to allow or not allow cross-faction queues, that's not gonna help, unfortunately, because it's just going to end up splitting the queues between people who consent and people who don't, and overall, the queues are just gonna go slower. Personally, I think the best approach would be to make cross-faction queuing work passively, and then use technology to obscure race identity whenever cross-faction grouping actually happens. So if I play as a human and I queue up, sure, I might be teamed up with 4 orcs, but what I would see are fellow Alliance races. Things would get complicated with pre-made parties or guildmates, but I guess you get the gist. I just want cross-faction activities to work. The one bullet point that I'm really not settled with is the one about needing to be Battle.net friends in order to do cross-faction guild invites, because Why? Why does there need to be an extra step? Like, I should be able to find and join a cross-faction guild through the guild finder, or just type /guild invite. I mean, maybe there's a technical reason. Maybe it'll change before it goes live. I just find it awkward that one has to share their battle tag with someone just to get them in. It's very weird. Healing is too easy, at least according to the WoW team, so they're increasing player HP and mob damage output by 25%, while also increasing most healing across the board. Apparently in Season 2, healing is too high, and the only way to challenge healers is to one-shot players, and of course, that's not fun. So a bit of controlled inflation of these numbers is a way to combat that, but I want to hear from my fellow healers. I want to hear you chime in, because I admit I've been observing all sorts of mixed messages from healers, like apparently every little thing is a healer problem. DPS nerfs equal longer fights, which equates to a healer problem. Mythic Plus affixes that DPS fail to manage and they take damage. It's a healer problem. Not enough DPS, I guess that's a healer problem too. But it appears that the health from stamina, it's not high enough, and it's too easy to top people off. So I want to hear some personal perspectives, like how is this going to affect you? You know, I feel like talking about elves in the Warcraft universe, you know, high elves, night elves, whatever elves. Talking about them is always to choose violence. So let's talk about it. In the story of World of Warcraft, Night Elves haven't been what I'd call winning. It doesn't seem like we can go more than a patch or two without a Night Elf development that happens to get really hardcore Night Elf fans really upset. I want to talk about what's been going on this week without giving heavy spoilers, and you know, frankly, there's not enough factual information to determine much of anything because we don't know enough, and bad Blizzard for letting something like this be data mined. Goodness, what have you done? But let's just say that there's renewed debate on if the Night Elves will find a new place to call home, and if so, where will it be? And some are really upset over the possibility that this new home will be located on the Dragon Isles, specifically west of the Ohn'ahran Plains. We can at least say that even though they've never lived there, this area has a lot of significance to the Night Elves because of its connection to the Emerald Dream. I'm not going to get specific, but you may have learned from the early Renown campaign that a special seed containing the souls of Night Elves killed back in Teldrassil, it's being guarded in the Emerald Dream, but also in this relative location. So it stands to reason that if this seed is going to sprout and become a tree, and if it's going to be zapped out into the real world, it's going to end up here. A very loud and vocal segment of players do not like the direction this is going, pointing directly at the devs and calling this out as bad writing. So why? This is not a shared opinion that I'm going to talk about. I'm mostly paraphrasing what I've been learning. These fans want their old home back. They want their territories back, for Darkshore to have life breathe back into it, for there to be a new tree where the old one once was, and they don't want to have to talk to a bronze dragon to do it. All that sounds pretty reasonable, right? Just go back to the way things were. Some of the other rhetoric is what I find debatable. It's still reasonable, but just debatable. And of course, here's the part of the video where I'm going to get choked by my own words, but here we go. For example, some are asserting that to have a new world tree / capital city somewhere else other than the original location is to give up. It's like the Night Elves would literally or symbolically abandon whatever holdings they have left on Kalimdor. They'd be letting go of Darkshore that they waged over during the Fourth War, and effectively they would cede these territories to the Horde, which would mean more loss, more sacrifice, and no justice. So here's my response to that. It's been well over 5 years in-game since the end of the Fourth War. Since then, the Horde and Alliance, as in, the governments, they've been working towards friendlier relations. I'm not sure if this is the most up-to-date information, but according to the Exploring Kalimdor book, Night Elf territories are basically being left alone, or at least Horde are definitely not welcome there. But since then, we haven't heard of any new settlements or much of anything that they've been doing as a whole people. If a world tree were to just pop up over in the Dragon Isles in a territory that had access to the Dream, and it's protected by freaking dragons, the green Dragonflight, it would be a pretty tempting place to move to, and Tyrande would be tempted to use that place as a seat of power. There's a certain entitlement there, obviously, right? I mean, the seed is made up of a bunch of dead Night Elves. It's like planting the flag, but it's made up of corpses and souls. But since when does that mean everyone has to move there? If we tap into some real-world parallels, what did the affected do in the war-torn regions? Some of them would stay because they have nowhere else to go, or they feel that sense of pride. They want to hold on to what they feel is theirs, that they're entitled to. Some do become refugees. They leave, they relocate, maybe on their own to build a new life, while others seek out pockets of their own people in certain locations for security. And among those, some might still return home after a while to help rebuild. All of these are reasonable moves to make. So back to the context of Warcraft, right now the story is focused on the Dragon Isles, so we just have to assume that elsewhere there aren't any major conflicts happening and no one's trying to encroach on others' territory or spring up a capital all of a sudden. I figure that there's some resentment from Night Elf fans who had their home lost at around the same time as the Forsaken, and the Forsaken happened to get theirs back within an expansion, and there's nothing to defend there. But once we get new developments with the Night Elves, and we're about on schedule to do just that, we can put the speculation to rest and share in the discovery and reaction of what happens. This week I took the guild into the Vault Raid with some different rules. In this case, we had no healers, and everyone had to wear the Onyx Amulets with the healing stones attached. It was a small group, not everyone had every stone, but at least for me, it was some of the most fun that I've ever had because, it was just different. It was a different way to play, thanks to a pretty broken item. I'm putting a video together with clips, but in summary, we were able to down like all of normal and 6 out of 8 bosses on heroic. So splitting the raid up for Broodkeeper, that was a bit too much, as well as the, huge damage that Razageth did. The bigger issue though was DPS. It didn't have much to do with us not using like the meta stones, but more like some of the team, notably the healers, they were on alts and they just couldn't do the throughput that was needed. But still, I'm glad the guild indulged me with a wacky experiment that I think paid off. It was a lot easier to set this up than like having the full raid set up with those blood shards during Sanctum of Domination, and I really doubt that this is going to happen, but it would be really awesome if the WoW team made the Onyx Amulet a thing again in patch 10.1.7 or something, and then we could do this again. What I don't doubt is that they're probably going to nerf these rings before season 2 like really kicks into gear, and then I'm going to riot in the streets by myself probably. But for now, let's give a warm thanks to the wonderful Twitch viewers who let me keep them company, the generous patrons for being so giving, and to you viewer, you made it to the end, you helped the algorithm, and I thank you. Next week is the last week of Season 1, and I'm going to do a last-minute Slacker's Guide to what you could still do. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, that helps me out, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.